And after a quick trip to Lowe's and a day where it rained nonstop, heavy downpours, we probably got 6 inches of rain yesterday, so we didn't get down here to work on the house. But it is Super Bowl Sunday, and we're back inside of our 2001 Fleetwood mobile home, ready to continue working on the shower here. Hey, I know you're probably just finishing up watching the Super Bowl. Nothing wrong with that. That's a part of returning to life, taking the time to enjoy the parts of life that really interest you. Me, I've never followed football, so I'm not about to take 6 hours of my day and stop what I'm doing in order to watch a football game. I'll catch the highlights of it later. You go ahead and enjoy the game. Nothing wrong with that at all, but don't let it stop you from setting that aside in order to focus on something different. Yeah, you may know the stats of everybody who's playing in the game today, but we know the stats of all the plants that are growing in our garden. We try to learn the stats of all the animals we plan to grow here on the property. Those are the things we're paying attention to and focused on. So on Super Bowl Sunday, we don't think anything about not watching the game. It's not a big deal to us to simply take this time to do what we've been doing anyway. And that's a part of what we want to encourage you to do. Evaluate those things in your life that have become such a priority and make some conscious decisions to change those priorities, to focus on returning to the land, returning to labor, and returning to life. So to get this pony wall up against this outside wall, and a pony wall is just any wall that comes up a partial distance. It doesn't cover all the way from the floor to the ceiling, so you end up with a ledge on top of the wall. That's essentially a pony wall. This one's going to be about 4 feet tall, and we've got to have anchors in the end walls that it attaches to. When we framed out the shower, we didn't know anything about needing to build this extra wall on the back of the shower. So we didn't put the studs in place that we needed in the wall to anchor to. Not a big deal. The walls are still open. We pull the insulation out, stick the studs in that we need. So we've got this stud cut to length. We've cut a notch down here in the bottom to go around the electrical wire that's in the wall. So let's get it installed. So we want this wall to go right about there, or this stud. And by putting this stud in here, now we've got a firm anchor point for the wall we're building. And this doesn't need to be perfect. It's just there to give us an anchor point for the wall we're putting up. So typically you would want to insert these studs while the wall was laying on the ground, and you could butt nail or come through the bottom plate and directly into the stud. That's the easiest way to secure these, but if the wall is already up and you need to add a stud, you do that by toenailing. So we're going to get the screws started a little bit. We just want it to get a little bit of a bite and start to make a hole. And then we can sharpen the angle of it up. Let's see, I don't think I've got enough angle to be able to come in from the other side there. Again, it doesn't matter. This is not a structural component. This is just something to support the pony wall. And then a couple of screws up top as well. We need the stud in the opposite wall here. We'll take a measurement. Oh, that's fascinating. That's 82 inches. This is 81 and a half. Well, this is one of those things that you come across when you're doing a remodel. We have a wall on this side of the shower that's 82 inches tall studs, and the wall on this side has 81.5-inch tall studs. They're built to about the same level. That one could be slightly taller, and that's why we're coming up with that. In the end, it's not going to matter. We're just sticking a stud inside of this wall. I'm hopeful that the walls are going to be at least close to being the same height, so that when we lay tile in here, we don't end up with a weird, pinching down of the side wall, losing a 1/2 inch across there. That could be visible, but it's going to be a large space in here. I don't think you'll notice even if there is a 1/2 inch difference, but I don't think there will be. Once we get the cement backer board put up inside of the shower, we're going to have a nice solid plane. You won't notice that the studs are different lengths at all. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this one to fit. So now we've got to refit all of the insulation that we took out. To do that, just put the insulation up where it needs to go. Put your knife on the stud, make your cut. And we just stuff these into the hole. Now you may be wondering that this insulation is probably going to get crunched up quite a bit inside of these stud bays because we're taking out this much space, but we're not eliminating that insulation. But it doesn't matter. They're just friction fit in between the studs. And we're looking for density inside of the wall for sound and other reasons. It has nothing to do with trying to keep heat in.
So with the insulation, we're not trying for perfection here. We just want to fill this space up. We're not concerned about which direction the paper fits. It's not providing any moisture barrier in here anyway. Building the wall is the same as any other wall, it's just not quite as tall. We're going 16-inch on center. I do need a couple of additional studs in this wall. They're going to support some side supports for the seat. So we're going to double up on this corner. So I'm going to screw these two studs together. When I place them in the corner, we'll get a much wider corner stud than normal. In the end, I thought through all the stud placements but one. I forgot to add a stud for the drywall or cement board backing that we'll need for the pony wall. I'll show you guys that when we go to put that cement board up. We'll add that stud at that time.
So we got the two walls built. Now it's time for a little dry fit here. Make sure everything's going to fit. All right, so we do have a little bit of a fit problem here. The problem is that in order to stick studs on the inside of the wall, I do have to cut them very tight. Otherwise, I can't toenail in top and bottom. But when you do that, it has a tendency to bow the stud out in the middle because there's nothing actually securing it to the drywall on the other side. So I'm going to have to do a little wedging and pushing to get this thing in here. Let me go grab a flat bar. All right, so we did a little bit of adjustment, pushing these studs back inside of the wall. We got this piece in place. We've got it screwed off to the subfloor. I've got it nailed in or screwed into the studs inside of the walls. This thing is solid. It is not going anywhere, and that's exactly what you want to hang tile on. The reason we're being so careful to make this super tight is that you don't want boards moving inside of the wall once you hang the tile. If you've hung that tile and the boards start shifting, you're going to break the grout and you're going to lose your watertight seals. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let's see if we can get this bench in real quick. So we are super tight here. One of the reasons they round off the edges of 2x4s is so you can build tight, and that little bit of rounding often will help you to drop things into place. This one's not cooperating just yet. So we had to make a couple of small modifications. We did build this wall exactly 48 inches wide. The sheet of OSB is exactly 48 inches wide. It pushes up against the wall on this side, and the wall is tight to the outside of the OSB on this side, and we should have a perfect 48-inch gap in between here, but folks, that's just working with lumber. This is 48 inches long. The gap should be 48 inches, but it doesn't fit. So we had to make some modifications. That's one of the reasons I like to use screws for this kind of construction. Pulled these screws out and just shaved 1/8 of an inch off of the bottom and top plate. Put the stud back in place. Now everything fits. Let's go ahead and sit it in here. I'm going to put a line on the floor while I had the shower pan in here, so I know exactly where the edge of the shower pan is. I can make sure this wall is off of that area, so our shower pan should fit into place when we're ready. All that's left to do is to make sure this is plumb and level. We'll go ahead and screw it off. So that's the front edge of our seat. All we need now is the back edge, which is just a ledger board that hangs off of the studs. I've already got the ledger board cut. Just need to mark the studs where it's going, and then we'll get that leveled off and screwed off to the back studs. And things are starting to come together. We've got our front wall for our bench in place. I've hung the ledger board on the back wall. We've got about 1/8 of an inch of fall across that seat, so water won't sit up on top of the seat. We were going to put in supports along the sides as well, but we've got less than an 8-inch gap there. It's not really critical. I don't think that the subfloor that I'm going to be putting on top of this will deflect at all, so I'm not worried about that. We did insert this extra stud just for that purpose, and the extra one there on the corner. I think we're just going to skip that. We've got our pony wall in place, so this is what a pony wall looks like. So we have an extra wall here in the shower, and it's perfectly aligned with the OSB. So we have a very square 48 by 48 shower pan. We only made one cut on this OSB, so we know it's square on 3 sides, and it should be relatively square on the other. So we're very confident we have a nice square floor. We've got our bench in place. We've got our pony wall in place. We've also hung the ledger board for the pony wall. Now all we need to do is cap these two. Both the pony wall and the seat need some sort of support for the tile. So we're going to use the rest of that subfloor that we did not use on the shower floor itself. We'll make use of it here on the top of the bench and on the top of the pony wall. And just like that, we've got all the framing finished inside of the shower. We've got our pony wall completely built. It's going to make an excellent spot to store shampoos and other items that you need inside of the shower. It is slightly sloped, so this will shed water. The water won't sit on top of the shelf. It will come off. We also have our bench in place. This is a perfect size bench. It's exactly the right height. It's got a really nice depth to it, and it will allow us to sit and still be right in the stream of the shower. So this is a good news, bad news kind of scenario. The good news is we're finished with the framing in the shower. The bad news is that means it's time to do plumbing. So that will probably be what you see on the next video about the remodels. We'll be up under the house working on getting this drain installed. One of the first things we'll have to do is to get this drain hole cut. So we'll be cutting a hole in the floor here. We'll install the drain flange, make sure it meets up with the plumbing underneath. We'll have to build a completely new drain and connect it back over to this vent. We do have a piece of the drain that's still in there. We're just going to connect to what's there. Just got to angle it over a little bit to move it into the center of our shower. So that shouldn't be that complicated, but it's all going to be done laying on my back underneath the house. So it is going to take a lot more effort than just this simple build on the inside of the shower. So that's all coming up on the next video. If you've enjoyed this video, please take a moment, jump into our channel and subscribe. Just hit that button. That'll make sure you don't miss out on any of the upcoming videos. You'll get to see what an amazing space this shower turns out to be, as well as seeing the rest of the remodel. If you've really enjoyed this one, while you have that window open, if you wouldn't mind, give us a thumbs up. That makes sure the algorithm knows you enjoyed the video. They'll share it out with more people. We'll see you next time.